This is A Geek Leader. Hey guys, John Ryder back again with episode 69 of A Geek Leader podcast. And today's going to be a solo show. I want to talk about leading through failures. And it's one of the things that we as leaders have to get used to is the fact that we're not always going to be successful. We're not always going to succeed. And many times before we become a leader, we have this stellar early career where maybe we're put on easier projects or easier tasks and we succeed often and quickly. And that may lead to promotions, and it may lead to bigger projects and bigger tasks and bigger things that we're working on, and those will eventually come to our failure. So it may be a point in time in your life where you haven't failed at work. You haven't come to the realization that you can't do everything at work. You might haven't gotten to that point. But I want you to understand that failure is inevitable. It's one of those things that's always going to happen. You're always going to fail at something. You're never going to be 100% successful at everything that you try. If that was the case, we would never lose. We would always win. But failure's not a problem. And I like to say failure's not a problem, it's a promise. It's the idea that you're going to fail. It's going to happen. Get used to it. But it's not failure that will bring us down. It's not failure that will destroy us. It's how we respond to that failure. Responding to failure is crucial. It's one of the most important parts of going through failure. And, it's not the failure that's going to stop us. It's the inability to lead or move forward after that failure that stops us. If you fail and you quit and you give up, then you were stopped. But you weren't stopped by the failure. You were stopped by yourself, by giving up, by not moving forward, by not continuing and trying again. I failed at many projects and many tests in schools. I failed at sports. I failed at basically every area in my life at some point or another. And we all fail, but we shouldn't fear the failure. I once had a boss years ago, many years ago, that he led through fear. He wanted the team to be afraid of us. He would insinuate things about, what is this going to mean for your career if this doesn't go off well? And instill that sense of fear that you're going to lose your job if you make a mistake or things happen. And what that did to our team is it made us work a lot slower, a lot more cautiously. We wouldn't take risks. We wouldn't innovate. We would do things that we were 100% we knew were successful. And in some fields, that's necessary. If you're doing things in healthcare and medicine, you probably don't want to be experimenting on every patient that comes in. You want to be going by the book. However, if you are a research doctor and you're doing new medicines and you're testing out new things, then you have to be innovative. You have to be, understand that there's risk and to move forward with that stuff. Otherwise, we're not going to create new things. So this fear just kind of slowed us down and prevented us from working at a pace that we should have been working at. So instead of inspiring a fear of failure, good leaders need to inspire a desire for success. And that desire for success needs to be greater than that fear of failure. All right? And that makes us understand that, we should really want this project to go well, not because we're afraid of it not going well, but because we really want it to go well. We have that desire to make it be excellent and the best thing that we've ever done. And by teaching us all that, we can be practical, not reckless, but plan and prepare for failures that will happen and will occur because we're expecting these failures to occur because we're going to be innovative. We're going to be moving at a rapid pace. And these failures are going to happen, but we're going to be ready for them. And a good leader will allow their team to fail, but they also help them and prepare them to fail so that they don't get hurt. And I like to think about it when I'm with my kids, and I talk about my kids a lot on the show, but in order for our kids to learn, they have to make mistakes. They have to fail from time to time. That's where we learn our most valuable lessons is through failure. And I want my kids to fail, but I want them to fail at the little things. I want them to fail at the small things. I want them to learn from those little things and those small things so that they don't fail at the big things, okay? So I don't mind if they fall down while they're walking or running in the yard, but I want to, and I'm not going to make them wear a helmet every time they walk around or run in the yard, but I don't want them to fall on their bike without a helmet on, So I want them to learn some of the lessons ahead of time on small things before they get to big things that may have larger impact or longer duration of pain whenever you fail through those areas. So when a kid fails or an employee fails on something small, don't scold them and put fear in them and let them think about how bad this failure is. Instead, when they try hard and they still fail, encourage them and let them know that it's okay to fail, and ask them some questions to learn about those failures. And one story that I really like was Coach K from Duke. And I do like Coach K. I am not a Duke fan. I'll go ahead and throw that out there. I root for my alma mater in basketball. Go Winthrop Eagles. But there's a story from Duke University back in 1983. And what happened was they lost in the ACC tournament by 43 points. Yes, Duke lost in the ACC tournament by 43 points in 1983. And in this interview that I heard with Coach K, he said, quote, "My defining moments have usually been something where I've lost or where I've been knocked back." So, yeah, think about this loss of 43 points. And at dinner that night, someone raised their glass and said, "Here's to forgetting about tonight." Coach K interjected, said, no, put your glass down. And then he said, quote, "Here's to never forgetting about tonight," end quote. So what he was saying there is that it's important to remember our failures and understand how difficult it was to go through that failure and learn from that failure. And in tech, we hear this phrase, fail early, fail often, fail forward. And I feel like it's lost its meaning over years because so many people have said it and so many people don't even know what it means. And it doesn't mean that we want people to fail all the time. It says fail often, but the reason why you're failing often is because you're trying things more difficult than you've ever tried before. You're pushing your boundaries. You're moving at such a pace, such a rapid, pace of things out in front of you that you're going to fail. We don't want you to fail. We'd prefer it if you didn't fail, but at times it's going to happen and you have to get ready for it. So I think people, they assume that this statement of fail early, fail often, fail forward is an excuse for developers or engineers or technicians to be reckless, to just try a bunch of stuff, to push code that's not tested out to the public. But that's not at all what it means. And I like to tell my team, you fail fast, but you recover faster. It's a similar phrase, but with a subtle message reminding folks that they need to be prepared for the failures that they're having. Be ready to recover and recover quickly, recover faster. We always need backup plans and rollback plans for everything, and to be prepared for that failure that's going to happen because we are pushing the boundaries. We are innovating at a rapid pace, and that failure is going to happen. But when it does, as good leaders, we need to be prepared and be ready for that to happen. When we fail, we need to stay calm. We need to respond and not react. There's a podcast episode about that I highly recommend you guys checking out. Episode 36, Respond, Do Not React. But I want to tell you guys, or leave you guys with 4 questions that you can ask yourself whenever you fail. Number 1, why did we fail or fall short of our goals? What was the reason that caused us to fail or fall short of our goals? That's number 1. Number 2, what do we learn from this failure? There's always a lesson in every failure. It may seem like it was just a bad luck, but there's always a lesson somewhere in there. You just got to dig around and find it sometimes. And retrospectives are very good tools for figuring out why you failed at certain things as well. Number 3, what were the early indicators of this project failure that we missed? What did we miss? We obviously missed something. What early indicators of this project failure did we miss? Because when you look back on things in hindsight, you can kind of pick up on things that, if I had known about that ahead of time, or if I had thought about that was an important piece when it seemed insignificant at the time, I could have maybe prepared for this failure. So what were the early indicators of this project failure that we missed? Number 4, how can we better prepare to prevent this failure in the future? And that's kind of the 4 things that you should ask yourself whenever you go through a failure at a project or a task level or anything. Just say, hey, why did we fail or fall short of our goals? What did we learn from this failure? What were the early indicators of this project failure that we missed? And how can we better prepare to prevent this from happening in the future? I hope those 4 things really help you out. And just remember, we want to be someone who learns from failure and move forward. So we don't want to be someone who fears failure. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this. And don't forget, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, head over to agleader.com/breast cancer to get redirected to a site where you can donate for that. And I hope you really enjoyed this episode and learned about leading through failure.